What is up? Welcome into this Wednesday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. And our first off the ball segment's loaded. We're going to have a first, second, and a third off the ball because we had some trades go down. We had one drop while we were live, but we didn't get to have Leger's take on it. We'll actually have that a little bit later on when we do our deep dive segment. But then Amari Cooper, a little later on in the day, he gets traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills get Cooper and a 2025 sixth rounder for a 2025 third rounder from the Bills and a 2026 seventh rounder. The Browns earlier this year converted his salary this year to bonus, so it doesn't cost like anything.
It's like $1.5 million.
Yeah, from a cap perspective.
Correct.
To do this deal.
You're not paying anything.
That's why they did this. That's why they did that cap maneuver, but they're not getting a third round pick if that's not the case. Like, that's why they get the trade sort of haul they did. But to me, I mean, Amari Cooper ain't the same Amari Cooper. He's 30 years old at this point. We've said he's had some issues with drops this year, but he immediately becomes the best separator on this Bills team. Right?
Without a doubt, I don't think it's close.
I mean, he slept on league wide. When we think about a guy who can do everything, like a true wide receiver, the old school kind of guy who can do all the routes, line up anywhere, run any concept. Amari Cooper can do that. So for Josh Allen, this is a brand new luxury. And you got to think those guys in the Browns locker room are like, how do I get traded out of here? Like, can I, does San Diego need a guard?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, he ultimately becomes their true number one. You talked about it, Kyle. I think he's been slept on for most of his career. He's one of the best route running receivers that is currently in the NFL. And it's always funny, Kyle, and we'll see this, right? Devonta Adams has a hamstring injury, right? We'll see how healthy that hamstring is now that he's been traded. Amari Cooper at times looked like he was disinterested in being there, right? You talked about it, Mike, had some drops. It'll be interesting now that he's in first place in the AFC East. Does that energy kind of change? Like, sometimes a change of scenery is what a player truly needs to revitalize them, right? And to your point, there was a reason why they gave him a little bit more money this year, because he was coming off a big season with like 5 different quarterbacks last year for the Cleveland Browns. So he can still play at a high level. I think part of it was he was in trade talks, right? You know what that could do to a guy's psyche, like not knowing whether you're going to be on a team or not. And then the trade doesn't go down, but now you know that they were trying to trade you to potentially go get Brandon Ayuk. So do you truly believe in me? Do you really want me here for the future? Now he's going to a place where they're in first place in their division. It'll be interesting to see, do we see the old Amari Cooper that we're accustomed to seeing?
Yeah, Amari Cooper's always been one of those guys that flies under the radar in terms of personality. For those of you who don't, dive into the weeds with this NFL stuff, you can't really find Amari Cooper anywhere. I can't remember hearing him talk. I remember in 2015 at the Pro Bowl, or 16, it was like, I don't know what his voice sounds like. Everybody else, all the other players talk to each other and everything. And I think Amari's one of those reserved guys.
Correct.
Obviously, he's been reserved in terms of the public eye because he's been in Cleveland. But now the light at the end of the tunnel is no longer a train coming at you. That was waking up every morning in the Cleveland Browns program and having to go to work with Deshaun Watson and the current situation there. You wake up now. You're a Buffalo Bill.
Yeah.
You have Josh Allen as your quarterback, and you have the opportunity to make a run at this thing. It's got to be so exciting. And for people that are specifically Amari Cooper fans, you got to think we're going to see the best version, because he's going to be motivated to be great, prove himself, prove the Bills right for making this move. It's exciting time for football.
And to your point, right, the biggest way he can help is win versus man coverage. And that's where the Bills have struggled right now. Even though Josh Allen, I think, threw for like 215 yards, you got to think 2 of those throws were like 60 yards of him breaking the pocket and throwing the ball down the field. So it wasn't within the structure of the offense. That was their issue versus the Houston Texans. When you watch tape, nobody was getting off a press man, right? Amari Cooper is one of the best releasers off the line of scrimmage and route runners. That's where he can help Josh Allen, especially on big third downs when you need somebody to come up with a catch.
He literally has an athletic apparel brand called Route Runners. That's how he's
Amari
a man
Cooper
who's
does?
dedicated to his craft.
This is terrible. This is
something new every day.
The worst marketing ever. Like I said about Amari Cooper, you don't hear from him. And if he's going to start a brand, I definitely am not going to hear from the brand. Thank you for that. Route Runners. Go check it out.
I love that. Yeah.
I will say this.
We'll take a check, Amari.
We'll go to the other perspective here, because from the Bills, it could put them over the top. Like, I think they're in the mix. I don't think this is the Bills that we saw even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Correct. But as long as you're kind of in there consistently in the mix in the AFC playoff picture, which they definitely are, this is a guy that can change the calculus come January, come February, that maybe gets you over the hump in that one game. From the Browns' perspective, this to me is the first of like many sort of moves like this.
Many
They are
trades.
going to
Yard sale.
They're going to yard sale. They're
Correct.
going to clean house. You look at just their situation right now. This was the year. They were playing for this year. When you look
Correct.
at all the contracts they gave, how they gave it, where they scheduled their money, it was all to put this roster together for this year. And obviously, it's been a dumpster fire.
Man.
And then now you look, 2025, they're currently over the cap. One of two teams over
Already.
the cap. Not only 2025, though, but in 2026, they're currently over the cap. So 2 years from now,
Crazy.
they are already over the cap. Obviously, that's a big part of that is the Deshaun Watson deal. But then they've given out other deals that they've kind of backloaded, whether it's guys like Myles Garrett or whatnot in that roster that are maybe a little bit lighter now, but are going to come to roost and how much they're going to have to pay them later. So if you're going to do this deal, and yeah, last year of his deal, it was one small piece, but man, I think there are going to be more of these from the Cleveland Browns. Maybe not the deadline, but this offseason.
More
you're gonna
spicy
see-
guys getting out of there, going
You're gonna
somewhere
see
with a
some-
chance
I
to
can
win.
see another big name, and it may not be a big name to Kyle's point if you guys aren't locked into football, but Zadarius Smith
Mhm.
could be a name. I know people have thrown Myles Garrett's name out there. I don't think that's ever going to happen because he literally is what Cleveland Browns are trying to be. What they want their team to be is Myles Garrett. You don't take the face of the franchise and trade him away, right? I know people talked about, well, Max Crosby, could you do? No, he's a Raider through and through. Like, he is the face of the Raiders, so I don't see them trading him. But a guy
Got a
definitely
tatted on him.
a guy definitely like Zadarius Smith could definitely help a team. We saw the Detroit Lions lose Aiden Hutchinson. Makes a lot of sense.
And we
to
see
me.
a lot of these teams that are in need of a rusher go and get one. And I think about there's a handful of guys that were in the league when we were in the league that got hired, signed towards the end of the year to go be that gun for hire, the contract killer off the edge. And when it's third down, they're going to get home. And, is that Zadarius Smith? It could be for some team. He could be the answer. It's going to be interesting to see how they piecemeal this roster and figure out how to get the most for it. And other teams are going to get richer because of it.
To that point, it looks like Nick Chubb could be making his return, right? So we'll see if that, revitalizes this team just a little bit because he epitomizes what hard work is, right, for the Cleveland Browns. And he's always been that, blue collar guy that's put in the work, that gave you the dirty yards and the explosive runs. And they've clearly missed him on that team. So we'll see if that kind of revitalizes this Cleveland Browns team after trading away Amari Cooper.
Well, you look at the way
that say it won't.
that offensive line, though, and we always talk about, like, when we first started talking about the Falcons this year, we said, well, they're throwing the ball too much. They have to run the ball more.
Yeah.
That Cleveland Browns offensive line is and was built to pound the football.
Correct.
And you get Deshaun Watson out there without your star running back, without the identity of your football team. You got Deshaun doing things that are uncharacteristic of himself. Well, now they're characteristic of himself. But that's the way your offense looks when it's mismatched. So for Nick Chubb to come back, it'll be big for that group.
It'll be interesting, right? Because Deshaun kind of wants to run that spread offense, but that's not who Kevin Stefanski is. To your point, they want to run the ball and go heavy play action with 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends. They've been more 11 personnel, which is kind of uncharacteristic for Kevin Stefanski. It'll be interesting now that Nick Chubb is starting to work his way back. That you say, you know what, forget that. Maybe the season's lost. Maybe it's not. Let's get back to who we are, right? Let's get back to who we are. Deshaun, we'll have some plays in there that you're comfortable with, but if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down my way, right? We're going to run the football. I'm going to get the tight ends heavily involved. We're going to attack down the seams. This is how we've won here, right? And I've changed things up to help the quarterback out because that's where he's comfortable. But at the end of the day, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down my way.
They got to feel us.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
the message, I think, in Cleveland. Like, we might lose every game, but they are going to feel us. They're going to remember who they played.
The other news from yesterday, Russell Wilson may be the starter. Some people reporting who will be. Mike Tomlin says
area news story.
He's in.
Oh, this is the mess with the Jets 100% for Sunday Night Football. Oh, yeah, because you know this, Kyle. A lot of times, if you don't know who's going to start, you have to game plan for both of them. So that makes you think even more, Mike, in regards to the game plan that week. So if you know that Justin Fields is starting, for sure, you're like, all right, we have to pay attention to the quarterback run game. We got killed by Josh Allen too many times, allowing him to get out of the pocket. Justin Fields gives you that same issue as well. With Russell, yes, he's a little bit athletic, but he's not as athletic as Justin Fields is. So, like, he'll take some sacks in the pocket. Like, he'll stay in the pocket. He wants to throw the moon ball down the field. So now the Jets literally have to prepare for two different quarterbacks. Wouldn't he be surprised if they decide to play both of these guys this Sunday, right? Just to make sure the Jets have to do a little bit more prep to get ready to play them on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, if Russell Wilson he looks skinnier, by the way. In the news,
slimmed up.
I was in the studio
like
yesterday. Me and Prisco are sitting next to each other. Yeah. They show Russell Wilson. They put on the lower third the quote from Tomlin.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think Russell Wilson looks skinnier. So we say that a 35, 36-year-old Russell Wilson is slower. He's still not the same type of mobility as Justin Fields. And that's true. But don't sell Russell Wilson down the river just yet. The guy is still a great athlete. He's still the guy that was super creative in the pocket and able to do things. And to your point, that deep ball is what made Russell Wilson Russell Wilson. So let's see if he's still got that in the tank.
To your point, if you're in that locker room, how do you feel about this move, though?
I'm not sure how to feel. I mean, honestly, I can't answer that question honestly unless I'm in that locker room and I'm part of those conversations, sitting on our little stools in front of the locker saying, how did it go for you guys today? Because, you know, the defense is really curious oftentimes how the meetings went on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah. How are the answers in the blitz meeting? You know, is your guy ready to go mentally? You know, I think the question is, which one of these guys gives us the best chance to win? And we're going to find that out. If Russell Wilson goes out there and plays and it looks lackluster, I'm sure we'll see Justin Fields back in there.
Correct.
But if Justin Fields is given the opportunity, I think he's going to continue to get better. He's not a world beater right now, but he's not losing.
He's not losing the game.
Games.
Yeah.
I think I'll read this Tomlin quote. And to me, I think it was a great quote to hear from a head coach. And like if I was in the locker room, this is what I want to hear. He said, Justin has been really good. And we've been really good at times, but not to be confused with great. This is a competitive league. We're trying to position ourselves to be that team. We've got a player with talent who hasn't had the opportunity to play, so we're going to potentially explore those things. That's just love.
He's
like
Tomlin.
saying, hey, I want to win a Super Bowl. You know, like right now, objectively, we're not winning the Super Bowl with Justin Fields.
Correct.
And that's fine to say. Like we're just haven't been to there. So I want to see if this guy gives us that ceiling. Now, again, I don't think any of us think it does give him that ceiling going to Russell Wilson, but he has won one. And he has played at that level in the past. And so I think that's...
Do we see some 2 quarterback sets?
I would love it. I mean, Fields.
Possibly.
I mean, both guys are athletic.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, gotta love Mike Tomlin, right? I feel like he just has the perfect answer for every single question. And to your point, right? Yes, they've played good enough to win on offense or not lose on offense, but that's not sustainable in regards to the defense. There's going to be a game where the defense is going to give up some yardage.
TJ won't get 2 forced fumbles.
Well, you got to think now they're really hurting on the edge too. I think Herbig is hurt right now, and Highsmith. So right now you got to think that TJ Watt's going to be getting all the attention this week versus the New York Jets. So will somebody else be able to step up and get to the quarterback? If not, that puts your corners on the island, which they're a lot better right now because Dante Jackson kind of solidified that secondary. But there's going to be a game where they give up probably like 22, 23 points. Does the offense do enough to match that to win? I think that's what Tomlin is saying. We're going to explore every position here, not just the quarterback position. If there's somebody that we feel like can help us and he has a role in this team, we're going to put him in the game.
Yeah, that's really your job as a coach, right? Yeah. So hard to hate on that reasoning. All right, we're going to get to our deep dives here right after this.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
All right, we're back. And as always, please leave a 5-star review. Apple Podcasts will get you your mailbag question answered, which we're going to do at the end of the show. But then just liking, subscribing, following helps us no matter what. All right, deep dives. Kyle, we're going to start with you since you're already
he brought off the board. You got to start with him.
I brought the whiteboard today. I got to figure out which camera's on me. Can I get a one shot here? Can I get a tight on me here? Can we get? Yeah, thank you. I hear our friends in the control room. So I'm going to talk to you guys about the art of the halfback screen today. I'd love it if I could see on the return a tighter shot.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, so it's this one right here.
This is called Harry, halfback slow screen. And the keys that I have to remember as an offensive lineman, because we have so many screens as an offense, is there's 3 out. And when I say 3 out, I'm talking about these middle 3 guys here, the play side guard, the center, and the backside guard. And I'm going to show you what 3 out means. So when you run these slow screens, here, rat kill. So when you run these slow screens, it's often in these long yardage situations, third and long, third and 7 plus, second and disadvantageous. You get the defense in a position that says, okay, we have to defend the pass. And then it allows the offensive lineman to take their pass sets. And the pass sets look a little bit differently on this play from past plays. So for the offensive tackles, the play side tackle wants the rusher to beat him where, Leger? He wants him to beat him inside.
Okay. They want you to rush up and inside.
Yep. So the offensive tackle sets back. He allows the guy to go inside. The backside tackle is just pro. He's inside out protection, but it's those middle three. I say 3 out. It's the play side guard who is going to block this 3 technique, depending on how the center calls this thing. The center can either go away from the play or towards the play. If he goes towards the play, it's 4 hands on that play side defensive tackle. You get a split hand release. Oftentimes that's where you see the play side defensive tackle hit the ground because he's rushing, and then they let him go, and he gets a baseball term. We love that, by the way.
I bet you do.
And then the coaching point for the front side guard, release as flat as you can, and you want to hit anything that's on this sidewalk, the lateral sidewalk. Now, running backs, you're going to be following him and the center. The center's the second guy to release right behind that play side guard. The center's job, if there's a hugger, go get the hugger immediately. If it's man coverage or if it's zone coverage, get out here. Don't go past the numbers. Oftentimes, the issue you see with running backs and with blockers in the screen game, is you run wide past the numbers, and then you don't have your ideal sidewalk for these plays. The sidewalk is the numbers, so it'll go right here. This is where you're going to see those running backs turn up.
To speak about that, we saw that in the Jets game, right? Tyron Smith got a little bit too wide, and we saw Taron Johnson be able to outside move him, go inside, and make a big tackle, which probably would have been an explosive game if Tyron Smith just, like you said, the angle was right and didn't get too wide on that screenplay.
So I'm going to draw it really simply right here with 3 dots, okay? So the play side guard is going to go with the center right here to block this defensive tackle. We're going to let the defensive tackle take a bite of the earth here when we slap him. Then you release flat. The center goes and gets, whether it's the mic or whoever shows from up top here, the most dangerous. The third guy right here, one of my favorite jobs in football, the backside guard in a halfback slow screen. You know what his job is called?
What is it?
Rat killing. So the rat killer is the backside guard. He's going to go get anybody that's retracing, trying to chase that running back. Now, in recent years, you've had to get really smart about how you get these guys blocked because you don't want to do anything unnecessarily rough, right? So a lot of butt blocks, a lot of boxing.
Blind side blocks.
I think the halfback slow screen, the halfback slip screen is one of the best plays in football. Obviously, a lot of teams run it in these scenarios. That's why they run it, because you can get a team leaning forward, you smack them in the back. Next thing you know, you find a way to sneak through there. And there are only a handful of teams that do this really well. And the best that I've been a part of was the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs do such a fantastic job of this, and it starts with the installation. And you and I both know that these coaches, they love installing the playbooks. They love getting at the front of the room in the meeting at the beginning of the week saying, these are the screens we have up, these are the runs we have up, these are the passes we have up. In the Chiefs building, the run game was handled by Andy Hack. I would imagine now that Matt Nagy's there, the third down and the 2-minute stuff is handled by Nagy probably. But when the screen game comes up for the Kansas City Chiefs, it's Andy Hack at the front of that room. It's a passion project for him. And he is somebody that has found a way to make these plays be so much fun. There's so many different wrinkles and gadgets that make the Chiefs playbook awesome in terms of screen, but the player's understanding of the screen game. The center, Creed Humphrey, is always on the right guy. He's always in the right spot. Trey Smith, always kicking out that guy on the boundary. And I think they have a really good grip and grasp on the slow screen game. And that's why I wasn't really tripping when they were talking about they don't have any receivers. I'm like, they can just use their running backs as receivers. Another wrinkle to this, you get the 2x2. That's 2 receivers on each side. You get the 3 guys to release. If it's a disadvantageous look on this side, you can throw that tunnel screen backside. And just last week, we saw Caleb Williams. We saw Caleb Williams doing the San Francisco from 2 years ago. Pump fake here, pump fake here. We get
down the seam.
There are a million ways to do screens. I love the screen game. Hopefully one day we'll be able to, maybe I'll come up with a cut up or something to be able to show you guys and have it here.
Well, we have a bunch of clips.
The screens
I
are
went back
amazing.
and watched every explosive screen on the season. We had the 6 screen, the throwback.
Flea flicker screen.
So if you run that back there, you take a look at where they are in the numbers. If you run that just that last one back, so take a look at the 40 where they end up on the left side. That's the sidewalk. Good coaches say that's the edge of the earth. If you go past that number laterally, you're doing it wrong. You want to stay inside and give that running back the opportunity to cut up and follow his convoy. When you get outside, you got nobody out there. You can see the numbers. It's one running back. It's going to be 3 or 4 Ravens. You stay inside, you have a chance. You can even cut it back there to the opposite hash.
Right.
There's so much depth to the screen game. It would take 4 hours.
Literally.
But I love it. I was laying in bed thinking about it last night.
Yeah, so I went back and watched every single explosive screen that we've seen on the year when I saw that you had done that, just because I was just to get my bearings straight of who's, what screens are working, what aren't. There are a few that were like some go-tos that I saw throughout the year that have really worked. One is power away play action to a tight end on the backside has hit a lot of people with it. So the hinge blocking tight end on the backside ends up being the guy you throw it to. That's been worked for like 3 different teams this year. But I think the 2 biggest things I saw that are necessary for a good screen, one is the sell, because the quickest way to blow up a screen is to have defensive linemen figure out what's going on.
Yep.
Those are the guys. So offensive linemen
retrace,
selling what that is. And then
when you say sell it, it's get on the defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Get on him. Be aggressive with your set in your hands.
Have it look like a pass. The quickest way is when people know, I didn't block you at all. Then it's like, okay, I know this isn't a pass. When you just slap them by, that's when you know. Other things then is the timing. If you can catch a blitz, if you can catch guys,
I love that.
When they're really dropping deep off a play action fake and you get this convoy ahead of them, like right there, that was that play action tight end backside screen that I talked about that numerous teams have hit big this year. So the timing and the sell are the 2 biggest things with it. You can't, that's why a 1st and 10 screen isn't often a great call, depending on what you pair with it. A 2nd and short screen isn't going to do much for you. They're going to be pressed right up at the line of scrimmage for you. So it's the timing, it's the sell, and then you got to have when
you guess blitz and pair it with a screen. It's like when one of the great hitters in baseball guesses fastball.
Correct.
It's like we are going to crush this ball, and it's going to be a huge play.
Because you took 5 guys who could have played, and they're all out of the play.
And they say don't block blitzers.
Yeah. Let them just get up the field.
Yep. See
what I love about the evolution of the screen game is kind of what we talked about before, is that they've kind of changed it where not only is there one running back screen off it, but depending on if guys have the leverage on the outside, you have a 2 on 3 or 3 on 2 on the outside, you can keep the ball and throw the wide receiver screen. And to your point, Mike, sometimes they make the run look off it, especially a team like the Baltimore Ravens that pull guards. Like there was one Sunday versus the Commanders where they pulled the left side guard, Patrick McCarry, right? And it looked like running back screen to the right, but it was actually a tunnel screen to Zay Flowers, and it goes for like 50 yards because you hold that linebacker when you pull that guard. So again, like it's the chess matchup between the offense and defensive line. And from a defensive perspective, the easiest way to kill screens is when you have defensive linemen retracing their steps, running inside and out, right? When you recognize it and you put that foot in the ground and retrace your steps, that's how you can destroy screens on defense.
Because we may have the look, we may have it blocked up, we may release on time, but if there's a guy that's winning the Charlie Hustle Award coming from the backfield, you can get tackled for a 1-yard gain, and then it's a waste of a great play call.
All right. Good screen talk.
Oh, yeah, that was really good.
One more RPO.
Yeah, I mean, like he's talking about, the RPO has been widely publicized. It's the run-pass option, and oftentimes now it's the pass-run option.
Yeah.
But it's the SPO that you're talking about. It's we're going to have a screen called, but also be aware of the pass if we get the advantageous look on the left side or the right side. So these quarterbacks, there's so much on their plate. And when, with the SPO, the RPO, the offensive line just knows one play. Right. We're doing our assignment. It's up to the quarterback to make us right.
Yep.
We don't know what's going on behind us. Make us right, quarterback, and we'll block this thing up. SPO versus RPO.
All right, Leger, what's your deep dive this week?
Yeah, I know you guys were on live when the trade happened for Devontae Adams. I just wanted to dive into it a little bit deeper. Is it too little too late for the Jets? With the Devontae Adams trade, I actually came on CBS HQ yesterday when the trade happened. And to me, Kyle and Mike, this kind of reminds me of that Hail Mary throw that Aaron Rodgers had to Allen Lazard, right before half in Monday Night Football versus the Buffalo Bills. This is a last gasp effort to salvage the season. Now, when you look at this, there's so many ways and nuances to look at this trade and what it can and can't do for the Jets, right? The Jets offense looked significantly better last week. I knew it would. Usually when there's a coaching change, guys are usually more on their P's and Q's. Guys execute more. It wasn't like the playbook was vastly different. I did love some of the things that Todd Downing did, motion with Garrett Wilson.
3 snaps.
Also, the 2 back sets near the goal line, right? Putting Braylon Allen at fullback, which should have been a touchdown, but because of a holding call, wasn't really a holding call on Tyron Smith. I thought
it was a holding call.
You thought it was?
Okay. I 100% think and expect a future Hall of Famer not to be grabbing like that on the goal line, particularly that far away.
I was going to say, what you do on that play has no effect on the play because the fullback dive is so quick. The chances of a defensive end making that play are literally slim to none, right? So you just got to be smart in regards to your anger. If he beats you inside, just let him go and let the fullback either because of where he's at leverage-wise just fall into the end zone because Braylon Allen is 240 pounds, right? It's going to be hard to stop him before he gets across the goal line. But I love some of the nuances that Downing had. But going back to Davante Adams, I'm cautiously optimistic. And I say cautiously because, for one, yes, Aaron Rodgers has a rapport with Adams, but people tend to forget that was almost 3 years ago, right? We just saw CeeDee Lamb miss training camp. And him and Dak Prescott don't even seem like they're on the same planet right now, right? So just imagine a guy that hasn't played with Aaron Rodgers for 3 years. Now, again, will some of their old symbols come up maybe when they're out and, Davante will be knowing what Aaron Rodgers is thinking. And then also as far as the details, right? You heard Aaron Rodgers talk about that final play on the interception of Taron Johnson. Mike Williams is supposed to be on the red line, a specific place on the field. You would think Davante Adams would be there because he knows how detailed Aaron Rodgers is. I think that where he could help the Jets the most, guys, is where the Jets lost the game on Monday night. And that's in the red zone. Like, when you look at it, the Buffalo Bills started the game off 3 for 3, 3 touchdowns in the red zone, and then they got a field goal at the end. The Jets were 1 of 4 in the red zone. Like, when people talk about, the defense started slow, they didn't stop the run, the defense only gave up 30 yards in the second half against the run. So they squared some things up. I think part of that is Jeff Ulbrich having a lot on his plate, and some of the calls, like, he doesn't get to really sit with the defense during that break because he's a head coach now. He has to lock into the offense. I think some of that had to do with some of them being slow against the run in the first half. But they tightened up in the second half. Guys took on blocks. Guys got off of blocks. Guys made tackles. But where they lost this game was the red zone, right? Their execution in the red zone was awful at times. And you would think the one play, Breece Hall, one-on-one with a safety Taylor wrap after a big run, you got to make him miss and get into the end zone. But the execution in the red zone still seems to be an issue. And that's where Davante can help. Because I don't know if there was a better connection, maybe Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in the red zone besides that combo, than Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Because Rodgers just can look at him and know, hey, this is the leverage we got on defense. I need you to be here. And he's going to be there. But again, to me, this is a last gasp effort. And now, what do you do with Mike Williams? I mean, I know me and you were talking on X yesterday, and you're like, to the bench you go.
Take a seat, my friend.
And then now there's talks that he might get traded, right? So it's just like, and then you worry about, what does this do with the connection of Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers? Because it was starting to come along the last 2 games. Now, the week before in Minnesota, 23 targets, I think is absurd in the game, right? To just go over 100 yards. But I thought they were really efficient Monday night, and that connection was starting to grow. Does that hurt his development now that Davante Adams is coming in? Only time will tell.
I love what he said about the red zone. And you're saying the only other guys are Travis and Patrick. I was lucky enough to see those guys put together their red zone package every week.
Correct.
And try to get Travis Kelce involved. But also, in addition to trying to get Travis the ball, we're trying to confuse this defense. And we're trying to show Travis in multiple different spots. You know, the shovel pass stuff that they do in the red area, all eyes are on 87.
100%.
So when you bring a guy like Davante in, it opens things up for everybody else. It's not just how can we get the ball to Davante Adams. It's how can we scheme this defense into showing their hand and us being able to have the look that gives us an advantage in the red area. I love that. The other point you made, maybe, you said CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott not on the same page. Some of that experience didn't pay off because they missed CeeDee not in training camp. With Davante Adams, I think that the only thing that I have a concern with, and it's going to show itself, are the things that he's looking at pre-snap the same things that he remembers from when he played with Aaron.
Correct. That usually takes timing.
Is it 5 yards or is it 6 yards for that corner that's going to make me put the brakes on?
Correct.
When I see the safety roll down, what's my immediate adjustment? And does Aaron remember that? You said it's been 3 years. 3 years.
Almost 3, yeah.
Almost 3 years for these guys. I don't worry about the terminology, the verbiage in the offense. No. I think that once they start to get the rust off a little bit in terms of, oh yeah, I remember you like it at 4 yards, not 5 yards. You're a little bit different.
That's my issue. It's going to take time to get that down.
And do they have the luxury?
They don't have time. That's the thing.
They don't have the luxury of time. But I think with the complaints that Devontae has had over the last couple of years, and rightfully so, the situation hasn't been great for him.
Yeah.
I think he has been laying in bed with his eyes closed, thinking about some of the things that him and Aaron have done in the past. And I think it shows itself earlier than we would expect.
I think it's huge. I do think it's a little too late to win the division. I think they're behind the 8 ball pretty hard in the AFC West right now, AFC East right now. But I think it's big for this reason. Aaron Rodgers, having watched him closely over the course of his career, he throws to receivers he trusts. There's a reason why Allen Lazard has 39 targets and Mike Williams has 17. And it's not because Allen Lazard is way better than Mike Williams. It's because he trusts Allen Lazard.
Correct.
And so in this offense, you basically, those 39 targets that Allen Lazard has this year, those now all go to Devontae Adams, right? Like the 6 drops that Lazard has, it's like Devontae ain't dropping those balls. Yeah. So from that perspective, it gives him 3 guys now between Garrett Wilson, between Allen Lazard and Devontae Adams that are all in the progression, because you saw it his last years in Green Bay when they kind of had this weak wide receiving core. He didn't trust guys, and if he didn't trust them, he wasn't throwing
it to him.
And so when guys are off limits in a progression, or when you're just hesitant to go to a guy in a progression, well, a lot of times that plays down the drain if you're not willing to. So to me, it's huge because Devontae's awesome. He's still got it as a wide receiver. He's not prime Devontae, but he still can get open and still can make plays to catch point. But because this gives him a trio of wideouts now that he trusts, that he is going to go to, and not just throw 22 targets to Garrett Wilson like he did against the Vikings, right? So he could spread the ball around now more, and the whole playbook's on the table. So I think it's big from that perspective.
Jets are dangerous. Is it dangerous enough? Is there enough time?
I mean, like, again, when you put yourself in a hole at 2-4, and when you lose 3 games in a row by, I think, a combined 10 points, like, you look at it, if things go one play here, one play there, you literally could have 1 loss on the season. Then this trade makes so much more sense, right? And to your point, now with the Bills trading for Amari Cooper and being 4-2 in the division, is it too little, too late to go and catch them?
Well, I'm looking at the schedule right now. They got the Jets have the Texans at home.
We'll have the Steelers this Sunday night.
Yeah, they got the Steelers. They've got the Texans. They've got the Patriots. They've got the Cardinals. They've got the Colts, the Seahawks,
Jaguars up there,
the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Rams. There's some winnable games.
I mean, again, all those games are winnable, but like they have no room for error now. Like literally, when you look at it, they have to probably have to win 8 of the last 11 or 9 of the last 11.
But right? if there's a duo that you could see getting hot.
I mean, we saw Aaron Rodgers get hot that one year, and right, they got to week 18, they had a chance to win the division.
Was that relaxed?
And they lost. Yeah.
When he was like, hey.
Yeah, everybody
smoke some butter.
They were about the same record right now. So, I mean, if there's one quarterback that's done it before, it's him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the bad guy in the movie that you have to just kill. You can't
give him a chance.
You can't let him bleed out and leave the scene of the crime. You have to kill this guy, because if you don't, he will take what's yours. I've seen it happen. It's happened to me.
All right, my deep dive does have to deal with QBs as well, and their contracts going forward.
Oh, boy.
Because we're kind of seeing the downside of these big deals, and especially after the Amari Cooper trade. You know, if Deshaun's 5-year, $230 million contract wasn't fully guaranteed, I don't think they're trading Amari Cooper right now, and I don't think they're starting Deshaun, and I don't think they're in the cap situation they are, and I think they actually have some wins, and I think they could do something about it, but they can't, and they can't do anything about it for the next 2 years now.
Yeah, correct.
The Russell Wilson and how far that set back the Broncos, his deal, and now Tua and his $212 million deal over 4 years, and how much it looks like it could be setting back the Miami Dolphins. You all see Dak get top of the market money, and they're 3-3. Trevor get top of the market money, and they're 1-5.
Patrick took a team-friendly deal, and he won a couple Super Bowls.
So, and it's
one is not the same as the rest
biggest
of
deal
them.
in the NFL. So, what do we think we see at the quarterback position going forward? Now, there's going to be a little bit of a lull, right? Because the 2021 class, or the 2020 class has all been paid. 2021 class only had Trevor,
which probably shouldn't have got that deal.
Been paid himself. Brock Purdy is the only one from 2022.
He's gonna get paid.
And I guess that's the next guy coming up is do they go, because the precedent right now is top of the market deals, but do we see teams worry about what's going on now in the three situations I mentioned, Cleveland, Denver, Miami, and say, I don't know if we do it. I don't know if we bite the bullet and start doing, what Washington did with Kirk Cousins, which is multiple franchise tags. Now, it didn't work out.
Well,
but
you know what the interesting thing is when you look at this? 3 of these deals were quarterbacks going into their third contracts. Yeah. Right? Dak, Russ, and Deshaun. Mm-hmm. So maybe teams look after they pay the guy after their rookie year. They're like, if it didn't happen, unless you're Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or we're not going to give you top of the market money on your third deal, because obviously if you look at the track record, it actually isn't working too well in our favor right now. Now, Kirk Cousins, it's worked for him, right, and a few other quarterbacks. Obviously, we'll probably see Patrick Mahomes get a new deal here shortly, and so will Josh Allen most likely get one very shortly as well. Be interesting to see where their money is. I think when you pay Dak Prescott 60, if you're Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, you probably want 65 or plus, right? But that's a good point. Like, people have wondered, what is Brock Purdy worth, right? People will say he's a system quarterback. I think he's much more than that. I think he's elevated his game. I've been saying this since his rookie year when he started, I believe, like the last 6 or 7 games for the 49ers. People don't talk about his mobility enough. Like, he is killing people with his mobility this year in regards to keeping plays alive with his legs or even picking up first downs. And when you look in the red zone, and I don't understand how people haven't understood this yet, his legs come into play in the red zone just like Josh Allen's. Like, I'm not saying they're equal, but you better know where Brock Purdy is. You better not let him out the pocket, because he will kill you with his legs in the red zone, whether throwing the football or picking up a first down. So I think you have to pay him at least 55. Right now, the thing is,
that's such a big number.
It is. The thing is, will he be like Patrick Mahomes and say, you know what, we really have a really good team, I'll take a little bit less.
I'm sure he will. He's sponsored by John Deere, bro.
But you also have to think he's also in San Francisco, where he's getting taxed, man.
Cost of living.
What the other quarterbacks are making, he's not making, right?
He's also not made anything yet.
Exactly. So it's like, I'm going to get as much money as I can. I don't care. Especially if they go on to win the Super Bowl this year. All right, we got our ring. I need my paper. If we got to dismember this team, we got to, because I have earned the right to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league.
Is there any football world we could live in where there would be separate salary caps for
people have talked about that
quarterback and for a roster? Because I mean,
it makes sense though.
It's like it's like you go to dinner, okay? You go out to a nice dinner. We take a look at the menu and say, oh my God, this place is expensive. And like, I'm gonna spend the $85 on the Wagyu steak.
Oh yeah.
But then you get $5 for some French fries, like maybe some frozen French fries. That's what some of these rosters start to look like when you're paying these guys $55-60 million a year, and you have to figure out the rest. It's the Cowboys. It's the meat and the potatoes, guys. We're not going paleo here. We need some potatoes too.
Some starches in there.
Yeah, give me some starches. Some fiber as well.
All I say is I would love to be one of the teams paying those mid-range quarterbacks.
Oh, for sure.
Baker Mayfield, whether it's Geno Smith.
It's a good spot.
You're $25 million less than the top of the Daks of the world, the Trevors of the world.
Yeah, you could build a roster.
At some point, where Geno played bad football, Baker played bad football, and people saw that. But now they ain't playing bad football, right? Yeah. They're playing winning football that if they had the pieces around them, and they both have some pieces around them right now, that they'll make the playoffs.
Correct.
That they'll be in the mix. And now it's not, you still obviously would rather have Lamar, Josh Allen. You still would rather have the guy, and you'd pay him top of the market money. That's fine when you have the guy.
But there's only a lot of these guys.
But there's a reason why there's only a few of them. It's literally by definition. There can only be 2 or 3 to 5 every year.
And when you pay a guy upwards to $55 million, you're saying we're going to take some weapons away from you.
Yes.
But you have to be the guy that puts us over the top. You have to be the sole reason, right? And that's why people say Joe Burrow, especially, even though he does have 2 number 1 receivers,
like Tom Brady,
which will change next year most likely, because T. Higgins probably won't be signed, right? Patrick Mahomes, right? People are wondering, are they going to make a trade for a big receiver? And me and yours point, you got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. You figure it out.
Just bring MVS back.
Exactly.
You'll be all right.
We'll figure out. Like Juju Smith goes over 150 yards the other night.
Are you kidding me?
Nobody saw that happening, right? So it's just like when you have a guy that's elite and special, And what I also loved about the Chiefs is that they draft so well, right? Their whole defense, besides like Chris, is pretty young. Like they let L'Jarius Sneed go, and people were worried about it. I was like, there's a reason why they took those 3 corners a couple years ago, because they knew they were going to be in this scenario. And all those guys played rookie year, so now they have experience, and they have one of the best. They had one of the best corners. Now they still have one of the best corners in McDuffie, right? Yep. So it's just like roster building is a real thing. Like people don't understand how rosters are built. But when you have an elite guy like Lamar, when you have a Josh, when you have a Patrick Mahomes, yes, you can quote unquote maybe get rid of one of your number 1 receivers because they are going to supersede the lack of talent on your team. But you can't just pay everybody that and expect them to have that type of success because they're not that guy.
It's like what we saw with Tom Brady in New England, man. We saw a bunch of guys who are out there that look to be like YMCA Friday night basketball.
It's crazy because he never took top of the market money.
Yeah, well, he's helping his guys out. But then you see these guys that are non-superstars, but you know, by every definition, you're looking at Edelman and you're looking at all these receivers. But then you bring a guy like Randy Moss in. So we saw 2 different sides of it with Tom Brady. But to your point, these quarterbacks that are paid all this money are expected to not only do their job really well, they're expected to help others do their job even better.
And to your point, I think that's why people were wondering with Jerry, yes, he had to pay Dak, but if you would have paid him sooner, you probably wouldn't have had to pay him $60 million.
Price keeps going up, bro.
Yeah, same thing with CD. If he had paid him earlier, you wouldn't have had to pay him what he had to pay him. And now when you look at that roster, it's talent deficient. You got 2 of your best defensive players hurt right now. Bland got hurt during training camp. When you look at that roster, it's like
star heavy.
Yeah. Like nobody scares you right now besides CD on that offense right now. And we talked about this earlier, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, about the young guys playing on offensive line. Right, that used to be a strength for them. And now it's not a strength for them, and that's why Dallas has struggled the last couple of weeks.
It will be interesting to see going forward. I don't think anyone's going to be willing to do it though. I don't think the 49ers.
What about the double salary cap?
You think they tag Purdy? We technically got 1 more year, right?
We got all this new money coming into the league from Taylor Swift.
The cap that
we can't put that towards the quarterback's own salary cap. We can't just take like the Taylor tax. Just go ahead. I know there's analytics. There's advanced analytics in the NFL. Find out how much more. What was the?
Well, they got the lawsuit coming too. That's gonna maybe hurt the cap.
We have a lawsuit.
The Sunday Ticket lawsuit.
Didn't know that.
They have some cap implications. So
I'm like this. No clue.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break after this. Get to your guys' mailbag questions.
The Charlotte 49ers enter undefeated Naval territory on CBS Sports Network.
It's about. I was like, it's because you took a team deal, bro. It's not a bad thing.
All right, your mailbag questions. We got the very first one. A couple of people had questions about Drake May. This one comes from Brodus Operandi. Was Drake May ever in any real danger? Oh, here we go. Was Drake May ever in real danger of being ruined by starting too soon behind an O-line that wasn't ready for him? Or do great players simply make their teammates great as well? And anyone who gets ruined by their situation just never destined for success?
Ooh, I like that, Andy.
I think there's no true ruining. Like there's no true guys rise above if they were meant to rise above.
Correct.
But you can be in a situation where it's not helping your development. Like there can be no positive to playing this year, and especially when you factor in the injury risk that could happen for a guy like Drake May behind that offensive line, to where, if he was going to fail, like if it was not going to work out for him, I don't think it necessarily mattered the situation. But I do think that a guy playing behind a really bad offensive line can just get set back a little. Yeah. Like it can set you back in terms of how you play the game.
At the very least, delay you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
it's not worth the risk.
You can alter somebody's progression, to your point.
There you go.
But in regards to if they truly ever had it, like it won't hurt them in the future in regards to being a good or great player. Right. And I think that was my thing. Some of the things I was worried about with Drake May. Yes, obviously the offensive line and the lack of talent in regards to some of their playmakers on offense, but it was some of his mechanics. That was the issue for me. But watching preseason game, it looked like he was working his butt off this all season. Yeah. And he looked really good during preseason. I think his head coach even, mentioned that. He was like at the end of training camp, he was playing at a high clip, but you could tell that they almost made the move to start him right away, but they decided, let's sit back, let him learn a little bit more. And they felt like this was the time to put him in. I will say this kid is tough. I mean, because he was getting hit left and right, kept getting up, never complained. We saw his mobility come into factor. And then what we hadn't seen from the Patriots was them push the ball down the field. And we saw that with Drake May. We saw the big arm, that touchdown catch to Kayshon Boutte down the right sideline. That's what Drake May is going to give you. I'd say keep him in there. He needs to build that rapport with DeMario Douglas, with Jalen Polk, who I believe only had like 1 or 2 targets, which I was a bit surprised about that. But I think they also need to start throwing Javon Baker. And I know Kendrick Bourne is coming back from injury, and they're slowly working him in. But I think when you take a guy in the 4th round, and it seemed like him and Drake May really had a rapport throughout training camp and throughout preseason, they need to play him a little bit more as well.
I wonder what the conversations were like inside the building, because, you know, we've talked about the offensive line wasn't good enough. Keep Jacoby Brissett out there. He's going to wear it for this team this year. I wonder if Drake May was kind of like, hey, man, I've been doing pretty good in practice, and I see Jacoby's getting, you know, the crap kicked out of him every week. And it's not an indictment on Jacoby. Yeah. It's an indictment on the situation, which is what Broadus Operandi said. And I think that if a guy has that it gene in between his ears, there's really nothing you can do as a coach but just take your hands off the training wheel. But, you know, take the training wheels off and say, you think you can ride the bike? Go ride the bike, man. And we had Matt Ryan in this week, and he said, Drake May did a really good job.
He did.
You know, I believe a former MVP. I believe you too, but I really trust him. And he said, delivering that ball down the field, that's the difference between him and Jacoby Brissett.
Correct.
And for Drake May, you go out there and you have a couple of those good plays, and your confidence goes even higher than it was before. To your point about the technique and experience, it's going to come with time, but you know, you don't get that unless you're playing. Me and Mike were like not really bananas about Drake May playing behind this offensive line, but after you see him, you're kind of like, I understand.
I'm okay with that.
Like I loved him coming out. This class was like,
we don't want to mess up a really nice toy though. Yes. You know, it's like a model airplane, and maybe they don't know how to fly it.
And we've seen it, you know, I just keep going back to Patrick Mahomes. If he didn't have to play his very first season that wins the MVP, does anyone, you know, like,
I mean, Lamar didn't play until late in his first season.
And literally his second season is still his best season, you know, Patrick Mahomes. So it's not like he's developed this like next chapter. And now they've won Super Bowl since then, but it's like, when you got it, you just want him to hit the ground with the best possible.
Don't lose it. Don't lose your it factor.
Correct.
There's a million guys out there with physical gifts. Okay. Yeah. The things that make professional athletes different is what's between the ears, 100%. In my opinion. Okay. They can find a dozen guys walking the street that are built like me and Leger, but me and Leger were probably willing to do some things physically and mentally that those guys weren't able to do, and emotionally. So you trust a guy like Drake May to go out there and do well. Obviously, they've seen emotional, physical, intelligence, and strength, and we like this guy a lot, and he's going to get better.
All right, next question also about the Pats. Most ideal offseason for the Patriots with the premise Drake May is the guy. So they got $136 million cap space. They got
that's nicey.
Spend it on the O-line.
Yeah, I think
I'm motivated.
Now, I don't love the idea of doing what the Panthers did, which was let's spend $100 million on one guy.
Two guards. Good Lord.
And it's like, just give yourself depth.
Correct.
It's like a starting spot.
Get solid players in.
So I like 3 guys who can start in the NFL.
Correct.
Give yourself that baseline. They don't have to pay $25 million for one high-end guard, but you're sign a bunch, right? Names I threw out were like Mekhi Becton, Walker Little. Sign guys who can like play in the league, who just like, they're fine. They're not going to cost a lot. It gives you just that flexibility. And if you are going to spend some cap space, I think T. Higgins would be like a nice start. If I'm like,
dude,
to pair with Drake May, I don't always advocate, but that's a guy that
mismatch.
Sometimes you got to overspend.
Exactly. Sometimes you do, especially when you would be a perfect compliment to Drake May. And like, maybe he's a little off target at times, but he's the guy you give chances to that can make those plays the catch point. And then in the draft, I think you're destined for a top 5 pick. You're praying that someone needs a quarterback and that you can trade back for
Correct.
Because it's not just one T. Higgins and 3 offensive linemen that takes you to the promised land. It's like an entire roster overhaul in terms of just like replenishing of talent. So that's what I'm hoping for them. And then take one of the top tackles. I mentioned Will Campbell, LSU. So
to your point, I think Adam Peters did a masterful job in doing exactly what you talked about, right? He didn't get like the big name offensive and defensive lineman, but he got vast numbers, and they're all quality players. Now, the only thing that kind of sucks about that, a lot of those dudes are on 1-year deals, so you're going to be in that predicament again next year. But we've seen it pay dividends for Jaden Daniels, and now that defense is starting to come along as well with Dan Quinn, because they're all solid players, like no big names, but like you said, starters in the NFL. You just got to get talent in on your team and on your roster right now.
That's what they did with their O-line: Andrew Wiley, Nick Allegretti.
Exactly.
These aren't all pro players, but they're guys who have played in the league. They've been starters. They've won football games. 2 of those guys have won Super Bowls. That stuff is really, really important, and it trickles down to the rest of your roster too.
All right, next question here. This comes from Don Schmidt. Who is winning the Rookie of the Year battle?
I'll start this one off.
Don't ask Kyle.
I'll start this. So, who is going to win, or who is winning currently?
It said who is winning the Rookie of the Year battle.
But it could, I don't know if
answer both.
I think next week, when Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels get to play each other, will be the game of the season thus far. And I mean, I know we did already. I know that we need to have Romo advance.
Yeah, maybe it's our main game.
3:25, 4:25 Eastern. I think we're going to get the golden hour there with Caleb and Jaden in Washington. Look, both these guys have been fantastic. Jaden Daniels has been historically good. Caleb Williams has gotten better every single week. It's 2 ways to go about this thing. And I mean, obviously, I would say nationally, people would say immediately Jaden Daniels is the Rookie of the Year right now. Bears on a bye week. You get an opportunity to go play the Commanders next week. It'll be a lot of fun. For you, me, Leger, football fans, you can't ask for anything more than to get these 2 quarterbacks in that afternoon window. Ooh. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. So I would say Jaden right now, but look out. That guy Caleb's in his rearview mirror, and I'm not even a homer.
Caleb's been in his bag these last couple of weeks. I mean, again, it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but what I really loved is what we've kind of been talking about, Kyle, his progression. Like, we've talked about it. What Jaden Daniels has done is irregular. Like, that's not the norm for rookie quarterbacks. But the trajectory of Caleb Williams, that's what you want to see. A quarterback get better every single week. Him living within the pocket. And then we still saw Mr. Houdini out there when he needed to be. And I really love that Shane Waldron got him involved in the run game with some zone reads, got him on the outside. And then right before half, when they needed him to be Mr. Magic Man, he scampered for like 20, 30 yards to get him into the red zone. Then you hand it off to DeAndre Swift, get into the end zone to extend the league. 4 touchdown passes. I mean, he was pinpoint accurate last week. I always feel guys that play each other, like, that's a big caveat to who can win the award, right? You have to put that in when you're making a decision when they faced off against each other. So like you said, next week we get to see these 2 potential offensive rookies of the year face off, and that'll be a big determining factor who could potentially win this award.
Bryce did beat CJ last year.
That was like one of his only 2 wins.
I know. I'll say this:
that's so disrespectful.
If Caleb's in the rear view, Jaden's cruising at like 120 though. He is.
He's playing at a different level, man.
To catch up.
He's playing at an MVP level. I mean, it says Rookie of the Year on the screen, but the guy's playing at an MVP level.
What if only one team makes the playoffs? Does that give that quarterback? Because we kind of saw this in basketball.
The Bears are going to the playoffs, is what you're saying.
Well, they may. They honestly, I mean, all 4 of those teams in the NFC North may get in.
Well, I think the Commanders have a better shot at the playoffs right now, though. If we're just a division.
Bears have a great defense. The thing is, you guys still got to play divisional games.
About the division.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean,
I can't wait to beat the Packers.
Answers, Daniels right now.
Yeah.
No debating that. End of the year,
could be.
Caleb's on a trajectory to be in the mix. So just say that.
Well, I'll say this before we move on. I liken it to that year that Carmelo and LeBron, were rookies, and Carmelo should have won Rookie of the Year because he led his team to the playoffs, but the aura of LeBron still won Rookie of the Year. Mm-hmm. Could that technically be something if the Bears are there at the end of the season? I say the Commanders do get in, but Caleb has kind of caught up to it. Jaden has done, like, to your point, though, I think it's still, like, he's got a commanding lead right now for how he's played the entire season. Caleb has really come on like the last 3 games.
Jaden does have some mellow to his game. He's like very smooth with it. And
100%. It just comes natural,
smooth
easy to
Carmelo was, dude.
The quick release on the jump step.
I like that.
All right, next question comes from Kurt. He says, is Aaron Rodgers still in the top QBs? He looks good to me.
What does top QBs mean?
I'm about to ask that too.
I think he is. I think he's top 10 quarterback.
Top 10?
Yeah, I put him top 10.
Let's do the list.
All right, so I put a list. I put a list of guys I'd for sure take over him. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Jade Daniels. I'm for sure taking those guys over Aaron Rodgers right now. And then the next the next group I put, these guys it's a conversation. Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Geno Smith. So those are 12 guys.
I thought you said Jordan Love originally. You didn't?
No, I didn't say Jordan Love.
So
it was in my top 7.
QB rankings.
He hasn't played that great.
Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, Stroud, Herbert, Jaden.
I'm taking those for sure over Aaron Rodgers right now.
I think we can all agree there.
For sure. Trajectory-wise.
But then Dak, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield,
I'm surprised you didn't put Jordan Love in that.
Geno
discussion.
Smith.
I know, that was really good.
I think that's a conversation that all those guys. Love's playing better in terms of statistically, but he also has a better situation. Like, he's not playing that great right now in terms of just like down to down consistency. Yeah. It's a much better situation than.
But if you had to win a game,
Rodgers.
Yeah,
I think it's so he's somewhere between 8 and 13, I guess.
Yeah, I'd give him top 10.
We should get Pete's quarterback power rankings list.
He probably have Aaron at like 20.
Yes.
Hater. But to answer, he's the only thing I think it's fallen, or two things have fallen off. Not quite the same arm as like peak Aaron Rodgers. It has fallen off a little bit, and then he just can't move. He's really just a pocket limited dude. About as pocket limited as it exists in the NFL.
Luckily, he processes really well, and he's got the ability to get the
accuracy
the ball out quick.
Accuracy is definitely there.
He's throwing darts still.
Did you see that back shoulder fade down the seam?
He put a ball in his pocket, bro.
I didn't even think that was possible. I would have loved to see. You know how they had those stats like a track, like the probability.
Yes.
I would have loved to see that on that throw because it looked like it was 0.5. Like,
John Brinkus from Sports Science would be telling me it's a 0%.
It was so accurate that the camera like lost the football. They didn't know where it was at, and then they showed the uptight replay, and I'm like, dude, he literally put it, like you said, in his pocket. Like that was the only place he could put the ball.
The guys in the booth were like, ooh.
There's literally only like 3 guys maybe making that throw in the NFL.
All right, next question comes from Candler Curtis. Would you rather have a kicker that could hit anything inside of 70 or a punter that always drops it at the 1?
That's actually a really good question.
It's a good question.
See, I thought about this, and I think if you just think about it for a little bit, it's the punter.
I was going to say, the field position is
I think it's not even like close.
Yeah.
Because not only is like dropping at the 1, you'll get 2 points sometimes.
Correct. You can score off of that.
Safeties from that. And every time making a team do a 99-yard drive, score a touchdown.
Tough.
So that's like taking 4 points off the board a lot of times, as opposed to adding 3 points on the board when so you have to get to your own 48 to automatically get 3 points. But for most kickers, there's only from your own 48 to like the other 30. So a 22-yard span there that you could miss. There's like that you're taking 3 points off the board. Like but then anything inside the 30, you're probably hitting. So
I love Mike Renner, dude.
The math was like this.
What's Belichick's boy that's always with him? That's Ernie, of course.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, he's just like, Bill, that's wrong. Bill, that's wrong. Here's the math, actually.
There's a math right there, Bill.
So I honestly don't think that was particularly close. It's the punter. All right. Next question. I've seen mock trades. This is from Spencer Davidson. I've seen mock trades due to the Hutchinson injury. Do you see any viable options for the Lions? A couple of people were asking if we see Lions trading. What do you guys think?
I saw one that was like, well, Max Crosby. I saw Max Crosby at the airport in Detroit. The guy's literally got a Raiders tattoo on him. I'm pretty sure he said he's a Raider for life. If there's one guy in the National Football League that I see being
he tweets out RN for L.
Yeah, he's like
everyone's always
RN for L. It's like chill out, Max. Chill out, bro. And we love Max Crosby so much. Crosby. What player was that about?
That was Jalen Milroe.
Yeah. So Max Crosby's a Raider, bro. Like my old man played 13 years for the Raiders, and there's a reason he was there the whole time. Is because he was a Raider, and that's what Al Davis 100%. Is all about. Mark Davis is Al Davis's kid. He's in charge. He's like, if there's one guy I want to throw an eye patch on and give a sword to, it's Max Crosby. He's a Raider for life. I don't see that being the Lions' move. But we talked about it yesterday. It's going to be all about Coach Glenn, manufacturing pressure. I'm not sure if they think they necessarily need to make this move. And I heard Coach Campbell talk about it yesterday. He said, if it does happen, great. If not, this is our crew.
Correct.
We're happy with it. I'd be interested to hear who you think could go there.
When you look at it, they just gave a boatload of money to Lee McNeil, who's a really good interior pass rusher and also really stout against the run. when you look at it, though, I do think they need somebody that can affect the quarterback on the edge. Aaron Glenn does like the some pressure, and now he finally has the corners where he feels comfortable enough to go man coverage, which is his identity. But I think a guy like Zadarius Smith makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Right? People were saying, Myles Garrett, get him out of Cleveland, right? He deserves it. Just like Max Crosby, like he's the face of the Cleveland Browns. You don't trade away pieces like that. So to me, that absolutely makes no sense. Max Crosby, yes, he's from Michigan, but still, like he's a Raider through and through. Like if they trade Max Crosby, I think the Raiders nation would literally be out with picket signs in front of the stadium because he literally epitomizes what it means to be a Raider. How about Jadeveon Clowney is another name for the Carolina. I know he just got paid there, but he's a guy that is coming off a career year last year with the Baltimore Ravens. He makes a lot of sense. So I think Zadarius Smith, Jadeveon Clowney make a lot of sense. Could they potentially trade for Hassan Reddick? I don't think the Jets will do that because I believe the pick goes to a second-round pick if he's traded in the NFC. So I don't think that makes a lot of sense. But I think they do need to do something. But to Coach Campbell's point, with Aaron Glenn, maybe we could just manufacture pressure. People were saying the Chiefs needed to get a receiver, but it obviously seemed like it hasn't affected them at all either, right? So I think it's Zadarius Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, and maybe even Chase Young from the New Orleans Saints if things go left on Thursday night versus the Denver Broncos.
You don't need somebody. First off, you're not going to replace Aiden Hutchinson,
especially the way he was playing this year.
No replacing the energy, the production you get from Aiden Hutchinson. Correct. What you're looking for is a guy who's got some juice in these obvious pass situations. Get out there and give the tackle a hard time. Let us try to manufacture this defense around you. But they manufacture the defense around Aiden Hutchinson. They just need a piece to go in there that's a little bit of an upgrade behind their second string. They're not looking to replace him.
Yeah, I'll say from like the Lions ethos perspective, I feel like they're a next man up sort of team. They're not like we have to look outside to do this. We got the guys in the locker room to do this. But when you do look at their roster, though, and who they're throwing out there, Isaac Ukwu, Josh Pascal, maybe Levi Muzurike kicks out outside a little bit more, but
and they're not getting Davenport back.
They don't have. They've had too many injuries that they don't have the guys right now really to rush the passer off the edge, and so it really is, I think, going to be an issue for them going forward.
Yeah, to your point, James Houston is the guy I'm looking at because I believe he had 8 sacks his rookie year. Like people were talking about Aiden Hutchinson, they were in the same class. I was like, y'all better watch this other guy on there. I mean, this dude was rushing off the edge and creating havoc. Got banged up, it just hasn't been the same.
Yeah, his ankle last year. Yeah, Nick Ballore hit him on a special teams play, knocked him out. And
that's your guy, Nick.
I was gonna say that's my guy too. My guy, I played with him in the Jets.
So Zadarius Smith, played for the Vikings,
Mm-hmm.
played for the Packers, has an opportunity.
Knows the division.
Has an opportunity to play for the Lions.
Knows the division.
I wonder if there's anybody that's ever played on every team in a division.
That's a good question.
I'm sure there has.
There's been 3. I don't think there's I don't know if there's been 4.
We'll have that answer for you next time.
All right. Last one. Ended on this. How would you redraft the 2023 wide receiver class so far?
Ooh.
So I'll give my rankings, and you guys comment on it because I went back and
I want to see your rankings because I don't even know who
I
those
went
receivers are.
Zay Flowers 1, Puka Nacua 2, Rashee Rice 3, Jaden Reed 4, Josh Downs 5, Jackson Smith and Jigba 6, Jordan Addison 7, Tank Dell 8, Dontavian Wicks 9, Michael Wilson 10, and then dead last is Jonathan Mingo.
You got Addison that low?
7, yeah. I just think it's not a shot at him. I mean, Tank Dell was awesome as a rookie too. Dontavian Wicks was awesome. Like this turned out to be a much better class.
It's a skillful class.
So Addison was good as his rookie year too. Just JJ was hurt for a good portion of it, and he was the number one guy.
I just think guys have passed him. Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, especially this year, they look like
Jaden Reed's awesome to watch. I love Addison.
Jaden Reed's just much more physical than Jordan Addison is.
I think Addison's going to have a crazy back half because let's not forget the first game he came back, he went over 100, had 2 tugs, right? And then he had to play the gauntlet, which is the Jets corners in week 2. And even Justin Jefferson struggled against them. Coming off the bye, we'll see if Addison takes off now that he'll be more healthy with extra rest time.
I love having Rashee Rice up there. Where do you got
Rashee Rice 3? Yeah.
So behind Zay and Puka Nacua, obviously Zay has become a superstar.
Yes.
Puka Nacua off the bus day one was a superstar, and Rashee Rice, prior to this injury, was well on his way to being one of the guys at the position.
I could see Jordan, depending on. I don't think I'd crack him into the top 4, regardless. Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, Puka Nacua, Zay Flowers, those guys,
elite.
Yeah, but Josh Downs, Jack Smith, and Jigba, they're not as versatile as Jordan Addison, I'd say.
Yeah.
Definitely more slot types.
Josh
but they're
Downs
pretty
better
darn
every
good
week
at
with
slot.
Joe Flacco.
The only reason why
Downs
I would put him up there is because when you look at the rest of that list, I think 2 of your top 3 guys are injured.
Yeah.
Right. Now you have to play that as to be a factor into this, right? Like your what we always say, your best ability is availability, right? And Puka Nacua had that injury issue in college.
Can't make the club in the tub.
And now Rasheed Rice he got banged up a little bit last year, and now he's most likely going to be out for the whole year. So
it was a good class.
Addison's been more healthy than
I mean, we went 10 deep of guys that are 1s or 2s.
Legit players.
Wick's probably a 3 in his offense, but like guys that are legit.
Wicks would be a number
NFL.
2 at another team.
Yeah. So good class. All right. There you have it. Mailbag season. Make sure you guys 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Get your question answered on the mailbag, or just hit us up on Twitter when we ask on Tuesdays. Until next time, Mike Renner, Kyle Long, Leger Douzable. Keep pushing.
Peace.